In every cold case, the evidence sits and waits. A faded photograph, a cryptic note, a single strand of hair. These clues are locked away, sometimes for decades, waiting for a new key, a fresh perspective. Welcome to the Evidence Locker. I'm your host, Shay. Each week, we unlock a new file, examining the artifacts of an unsolved case. We'll piece together the timeline, explore the theories, and focus on the one piece of evidence that could hold the key. If only we could see it in the right light. It's the morning of May 25th, 1979. Soho, Lower Manhattan, a lively, semi-industrial neighborhood, not yet the hip enclave of artists and boutiques that it would later become. The Patz family awakens to a day like any other, except for their 6-year-old son, Etan. It's an eagerly awaited rite of passage. This is the first day that Etan will be allowed to walk the 2 short blocks from his family's apartment to the bus stop, all by himself. Dressed in a black future flight captain cap, blue corduroy jacket, and blue sneakers with fluorescent stripes, he carries $1 to buy a soda at lunch and sets out into the city. His mother, Julie, watches him leave. What happens next will unleash a wave of fear and change the way America treats its missing children forever. When Etan doesn't return from school that afternoon, the alarm is raised. He never made it onto the bus. By evening, New York police, bloodhounds, neighbors, and news crews descend on Soho for what becomes one of the largest and lengthiest searches in New York City's history. Despite weeks of exhaustive searching, with Etan's father Stanley, a professional photographer, printing his son's face on countless missing child posters distributed across the city and soon the nation, no sign of Etan is found. The Patz family is left in limbo, trapped between hope and heartbreak. Etan's body is never found. In 1979, there is no national protocol coordinating law enforcement searches for missing children. The police initially treat the disappearance as a local matter and even suspect the family, but the Patz parents, Stanley and Julie, are soon cleared. The press latches onto the case. Stanley's painstakingly documented photographs of his son become iconic. Etan's face is among the first to appear on milk cartons, a practice that would soon sweep American breakfast tables, giving rise to the term milk carton kids. President Ronald Reagan will later commemorate the date of Etan's disappearance, May 25th, as National Missing Children's Day, solidifying Etan's legacy. But on that first spring day, all of this is still to come. Grief-stricken, the Patz family and their neighbors do what they can. Community members plaster flyers on lampposts, search alleys, and ring doorbells. The search for Etan is the largest of its kind in decades, a citywide mission that churns up hundreds of dead-end leads and faded hopes. It's not enough. Weeks pass. The case cools. Years turn into decades, and Soho is transformed. The city and the nation are changed too. Etan Patz's face, blonde hair, wide eyes, open smile, becomes the face of missing children. He's one of the first milk carton kids. His parents, refusing to quietly move on, speak at rallies, organize advocacy efforts, and press for national legislation. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is founded in 1984, partly inspired by Etan's disappearance and, 2 years later, by the abduction and murder of Adam Walsh in Florida. Police keep the investigation open, following up on leads into the 1980s and 1990s. The name Jose Ramos comes up frequently. Ramos was a convicted child molester with connections to the Patz former babysitter and lived nearby. In the 1980s, he tells federal authorities he took a young boy to his apartment the very same day that Etan disappeared and is 90% sure the child he saw on the TV later was the same boy. But he never uses Etan's name, and there's no conclusive physical evidence. Ramos is later convicted for molesting children, but never charged in the Patz case. In 2004, a civil court finds him liable for Etan's wrongful death, but no criminal prosecution follows. Each year, on the anniversary of his son's disappearance, Stanley Patz sends Ramos a missing child poster. On the back, he types, "What did you do to my little boy?" As years pass, the case cools. Etan is declared legally dead in 2001. New York City changes, the world moves on, but the city never quite forgets, and neither does the Patz family. Still, the case remains unsolved, a symbol of vanished childhood and unresolved grief. In 2012, 33 years after Etan's disappearance, a remarkable new lead surfaces. Pedro Hernández, a former teenage stock clerk who worked in a convenience store near the Patz home in 1979, comes to the attention of police after his brother-in-law tells investigators Hernández had once boasted of harming a child. When police bring Hernández in, he confesses after 7 hours of questioning. He says he lured Etan into the basement by promising him a soda, choked him, placed his body in a plastic bag, and left it with the trash. He later repeats his confession in a videotaped statement after being read his Miranda rights. To some, it seems the case is finally solved, but it isn't that simple. Pedro Hernández has a documented history of mental illness and a low IQ, bordering on intellectual disability. The confession, key to the case, comes after hours without a lawyer or Miranda warning. There is no forensic evidence, no eyewitnesses, and Etan's remains are never found. In 2015, his first trial ends in a hung jury. A retrial follows, this time with the videotaped confession as centerpiece. Hernández is convicted in 2017 of felony murder and first-degree kidnapping, but acquitted of intentional murder. He is sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Etan's father, Stanley Patz, tells the press, "I needed to know what happened to my son. At least, I know what happened. Justice, it seems, has finally been served. Or has it?" On July 21st, 2025, nearly half a century after Etan's disappearance, the story takes yet another turn. The Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals overturns Pedro Hernández's conviction. The reason? Improper jury instructions. Specifically, the trial judge failed to direct the jury that it could disregard all of Hernández's confessions if they concluded the first one, delivered before being read his rights, was invalid. The appeals court rules that the jury should have received a more thorough explanation, including the option to disregard all of Hernández's confessions. Instead, the judge answered no when asked whether jurors should disregard subsequent confessions if the original was tainted. Once again, the trial becomes a legal proving ground, not just a case of guilt or innocence, but of whether America's justice system can navigate the treacherous waters of confession evidence, mental illness, and due process. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office plans to appeal to the Supreme Court. but the case against Hernandez may unravel. Many witnesses are scattered or unlocatable. Original trial lawyers have moved on, and there's still no physical evidence tying Hernandez to the crime. Federal Judge Colleen McMahon gives prosecutors until June 1st, 2026 to retry Hernandez or release him. The case, once again, stands on a precipice. Why is this case so difficult? Is it the absence of a body? The fleeting nature of memory? After all, decades have passed since the spring morning Etan vanished. Or is it the nature of confessions themselves? How under duress, in the hands of the vulnerable, they can be shaped by suggestion and longing. Pedro Hernandez's defense points to another suspect, Jose Ramos, whose trial, like Hernandez's, is littered with disturbing statements, but no conclusive evidence. Prosecutors maintain that Hernandez's confession is credible and argue he faked or exaggerated his mental health issues. But with every year, witnesses move on or pass away, evidence is lost or faded. The city, the country have changed, but the Patz family's ordeal remains frozen in time. The prosecution will now have to decide whether to put Hernandez on trial a third time, risking another hung jury or acquittal, or let him go. For the Patz family, and for everyone who has followed the case, closure slips further out of reach. To understand the enormity of the Etan Patz case and its effect on America, you have to look beyond the courtroom, beyond Soho's cobbled streets, to the world his disappearance helped create. Before Etan, missing children's cases were local tragedies, rarely publicized or coordinated nationally. Etan's disappearance, followed by the murder of Adam Walsh, crystallized fears about stranger danger and the vulnerability of children in public spaces. The hysteria, sometimes reasoned, sometimes paranoid, helped bring about transformative change. After the Patz and Walsh cases, law enforcement shifted away from the wait-and-see approach to missing children. Authorities began to act immediately instead of assuming runaways had simply wandered off. A national hotline for missing children was created, and databases replaced the patchwork of police file folders and local alerts. The founding of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, in 1984 gave parents and police somewhere to turn when the worst happened. Etan's face on a milk carton became a cultural shorthand for loss of innocence, a symbol for parents in a more anxious, less trusting America. Billboards and Amber Alerts would follow, reframing how America responds when a child vanishes. The movement didn't just change law enforcement protocols, it changed how millions of parents raised their children, keeping a tighter rein on independence, limiting unsupervised play, and reinforcing messages about stranger danger. The age of childhood innocence, when city kids could walk to school themselves, was over. A new, more cautious era had begun. As we look back nearly 50 years later, it's tempting to reduce Etan's story to a set of lessons on justice delayed, on the perils of confession evidence, on the ability of a single case to reshape a nation's conscience. But to do that is to forget the human toll. Etan Patz was not simply a symbol. He was a little boy who loved flying, who smiled for his father's camera, who reached for his own autonomy on that spring morning in 1979. His parents, Stanley and Julie, endured decades without answers, a unique torture that few can fathom. For Stanley, closure was tantalizing. Hernandez's conviction, however flawed, seemed to finally answer the question that had haunted him each day. What happened to my son? But with the reversal of that conviction, with fresh doubt, comes a searing pain that will never fully heal. For every parent whose child disappears, the certainty, good or bad, may be less cruel than not knowing at all. Today, there are homages to Etan Patz throughout Manhattan. Plaques, articles, books. Every May 25th is National Missing Children's Day, a call to vigilance and remembrance. But the Patz family has never moved from the home where Etan was last seen. Each year they mark the day, not just in memory, but in the hope that someday, somehow, the truth will emerge. The story is not over. Pedro Hernández may face a new trial, or he may go free. Jose Ramos, once the prime suspect, remains at large, unconfessed and uncharged. The milk cartons have faded, replaced by digital billboards and phone alerts. But for tens of thousands of families each year, the horror of losing a child is undiminished. Etan Patz changed this country, its institutions, its fears, its promises. But for his family, and for a country still pulling at the threads of this mystery, the wound lingers. Thank you for joining us on this journey through an American tragedy. If you know anything, if you remember that day or those faces, New York detectives and the Patz family ask, please come forward. Etan's absence is not just an echo of the past, it's a call to action, a reminder that every lost child deserves to be found, and every family deserves to know what happened.